So the 2018 wine we could maybe taste now if everyone's interested. Hopefully you have your bottles. So as I mentioned, the wine goes through a skin contact of about 12 hours and barrel fermented in 1/3 new oak, French oak, and it's aged on heavy lees for 1 year before we bottle. The wine, all my wines are mostly natural yeast fermentations, non-inoculated fermentation, so they ferment on their own without adding any yeast strains. But the Petit Manseng, because in most years it's a high alcohol, high sugar wine, I always have a few barrels that I do with a commercial yeast strain to help as an insurance policy in case I need to, if I have stock fermentations and need to add some other wine to get them going. But 2018 wasn't really the case because it was such a wet year. This wine actually is less than 14% alcohol, about 13.8, I believe. And this is 100% Petit Manseng. In most vintages, if we have a little bit too much acidity, I've been blending in some Roussanne that we have at Hanley as well to kind of soften and reduce the acid and make it a little more balanced. But in 2018, it was 100% Petit Manseng because of the rain and the moisture that we had diluted some of the acidity. But these are tiny berries, very concentrated, and generally speaking, with this thick skins. And so even in 2018, with the skin soak, maceration before fermentation, we were allowed to extract some really nice flavors from this wine. So this was bottled last summer, at the end of the summer, and we're currently on the 2017 vintage. And this is a wine, because of the nice acidity and the barrel fermentation, that ages beautifully. It's a white wine, reminds me a lot of a white Burgundy in terms of how it can age and develop in the bottle over time. And the 18 is a little different than the previous vintages because of, as I mentioned, the conditions. So this one's a little softer, a little rounder, a little more approachable early on, but the older vintages are absolutely fantastic. So hopefully some of you have been able to put away some of their first few vintages and see how they age. So what I love about this aromatics, this is one of our, what we call our aromatic varieties, like Viognier. And for me, it's really the aromas that come out are just what I enjoy. As much as the flavor, I enjoy the aromas. I get on this one, it's still quite young, so the barrel fermentation is the barrel aging is still there. It hasn't really fully integrated, but grilled pineapple is kind of the nuance that I always associate with my Petit Manseng because of the barrel fermentation with 1/3 new oak. Yeah, the pineapple nuances are always there, and then when you add the barrel fermentation, it kind of gives you a little bit of that grilled pineapple characteristic. A lot of lemon curd. I get lemony notes as well. A little bit of honeysuckle, and occasionally there's a little bit of nutmeg characteristic as well. I don't know if people are commenting or.
Great concentration. For an 18, especially.
Right. Yeah, for an 18, this is, for me, it was pretty surprising. I made the 18s not knowing what was going to happen. I did make some reds in other whites like Viognier, and I decided not to bottle any of them because I wasn't pleased with the quality. So we're fortunate enough, a lot of those wines went into our bag-and-box wines, our keg wines, and other wines. But this is really, just shows the potential Petit Manseng. On the palate, you're getting that really bright acidity, a lot of citrus, a lot of lemon, and the oak on the palate is definitely more balanced, and that's because of the acid level that we have, I think, and the fruit intensity. The nose is still, for me, it still needs time to settle down as it ages. But on the palate, the weight of the oak and the skin contact I think helps really expand the palate. The extraction of the juice after it's been soaked on the skins for 12 hours helps to build a little more weight and balance out the acidity. And so the finish is just nice, crisp, citrusy notes that linger on this wine. This is a great wine to pair with. It's goes a lot of different ways. Same with Cabernet Franc. These are two of my favorite grapes to work with because they can pair with so many different things. This wine, I forget what vintage, maybe it was a 2013 or 14, was picked by Saveur magazine as the ideal wine for 14. Yeah, for Thanksgiving. It was just the 2016 was just picked by a chef at Chloe DC in the Wine Spectator. He did a pairing. It was listed in the Wine Spectator in I think August with a nundi or ricotta dumplings with a tomato. I think it was a tomato puree, or it had some tomato as well because the acidity in tomatoes really worked well with it. So this wine can go with, I like it with ginger, curry dishes, coconut milk. It can really pair with a lot of different cuisine with a little spice, a little acid. So it's fun. Seafood obviously is ideal, to chicken thighs. I mean, it really has a lot of versatility in this wine. So. Good. All right. Next, we're going to move on to the 2017 Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc is, I think, by far my favorite red varietal here in Virginia. It always has been since I started making wines in here in '95. I fell in love with the quality and the potential of Cabernet Franc. It's been a popular variety here for many years. Doesn't get, I don't think it gets the respect it deserves. A lot of people love the bigger, heavier Petit Verdot or Tannat or Merlot or Cabernets. But for me, this wine has always been my favorite to make. And it really is a reflection every year of the vintage. Cabernet Franc really shows me more of the climate of Virginia and the vintage we have every year. And you can have Cabernet Francs that are bright, light, and fruity. You can have some really dense, heavily extracted Cabernet Francs with lots of tannin. And for me, I don't have any one set style. I really let the vintage dictate what the style is going to be. And I'm always open to trying different things. This year we actually had our first harvest of Cabernet Franc from the Honolulu vineyard, from young vines, and I did the whole 100% whole cluster fermentation. Usually I do about 20% of the fermentation as whole cluster, so it's a stylistic thing, and this fruit was ideal for it. It was such a great vintage in 2019. This vintage, though, is a 2017, and Cabernet Franc really it does well in these two sites where it's grown. This is actually a combination of a vineyard that was in Keswick, which we have no longer, the Rougemont vineyard that we planted, and Carter's Mountain Cabernet Franc, which I've been working with since 2007, I believe. And they're very different styles of Cabernet Franc that we blended together. It is a 70-30 blend, roughly, 70% from Rougemont and 30% from Carter's Mountain. Even though the two vineyard sites were maybe 15 minutes apart, very different growing conditions. Carter's Mountain, as many of you might know, is on top of about 1,000, close to 1,000 feet in elevation, maybe just under that. And it's a really steep slope, more west-southwest facing. Beautiful breezy afternoons there, keeps the vineyard a little bit cooler. And the Rougemont vineyard was a more east-southeast facing slope, both similar heavy clay soils. And this 17 was from a 3-year-old vine, so young fruit. But the vintage 17 was a fantastic year. It really was a great year. We had a nice, hot, long growing season. The grapes from Rougemont really were out there for a long time. We really weren't looking to achieve further ripening in terms of sugar levels, but we were looking for riper, tannins, more mature tannins for this wine, and so we left it for quite a long time on the vine. The winemaking style of this is pretty traditional. We destem the fruit, lightly crush, and add, as I said, this vintage was about 20% whole cluster added back into it. And then the wines are cold soaked for a short period of time. The juice and the skins are cold soaked for a short period of time before we build the fermentation up with the natural fermentation in some starter kegs that we add back to the wine once they get going. And then it's more traditional Bordeaux style, classic Bordeaux style with heavy pump overs, aeration, and then extended maceration on the skins post-fermentation that really helps build and add structure to the wine and helps the wine with volume. And then the wine's put in barrels, and this was about 50% brand new French oak, all French oak barrels, 50% new, and aged for 2 years in barrel before we bottled it last summer as well. And the style that I like when I have a vintage like that is to really kind of go a little heavier on the aging, a little heavier on the oak. 50% for Cabernet Franc is a pretty fair amount. And these Cabernet Francs in Virginia, from many of our other wineries, can age incredibly well. I'm still enjoying some Cabernet Francs I made in the late 90s. They're absolutely fantastic. And so this is a variety in certain years that really can impress a lot of people with the ageability. So, having said that, you can see the color, beautiful dark for Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Francs can tend to be a little bit lighter in color, but this was just an incredible ripe vintage, and with the extraction we were able to get some really nice, dark color. Aromatically for me, I always get a lot of eucalyptus and dark cherry and some black currants. This is still quite young, so again, the same thing. The oak is still there in the background. It's not overwhelming right now, but it's there, it's present, and the oak will dissipate with some time. This wine has a long way to go. It won't even be released probably for at least another 6 months, and then this is a wine that's going to, I think, age 7 to 10 years, no problem. Really dense, rich. Still getting a lot of the young Cabernet Francs. I pick up a little bit of cocoa, a little cocoa powder characteristic to it. It has a real nice, almost spice notes with that combined with the vanilla from the barrel, but really the cherry cherry notes are pretty intense. The wine is as I said, it's going to age well, but I think another year to 2 years it'll start to really pop in the glass and be a little bit more approachable as it settles down. Get a little bit of lead pencil as well, pencil shavings. So, hope everyone's enjoying this wine. The current release is the 16, and so this will, the 16 is a beautiful, more approachable wine. It's a little bit lighter vintage than the 17. Any questions? Anybody interested in any questions of the winery, the wines? I hope this is going over well. I look forward to, I look forward to doing some, if this works, doing some other tastings, maybe opening up some of the library and do a library tasting or vertical tasting if people are interested in it, and we could send out the wines. Also do some of my Burgundy wines. Eventually we could do focus on some of the white Burgundies or some of the Pinots and the reds that we do. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this. That's it? Okay, well, thank you all, and until next week, everyone be safe, take care, wash your hands, and have a good week.